All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live stream from Savvy, where we are going to talk to Jonny Ver Planck about making cane juice rum. So my name is Will Hookinga. I'm from American Rum Report. And as I said, I'm here with Jonny Ver Planck. I'll give a more formal introduction to Jonny in a moment. But first, Jonny, how are you today? And where are you right now?
Hey, Will. I am in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I'm
Excellent.
pretty good.
Awesome. I see we've already got a lot of people joining in. If you're in the chat, feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Real quick, I'm going to kind of run through just the agenda for our time together today. So first of all, if you look on your screen, like I said, you'll see a chat window to the right. And at the bottom of the screen, you should see something that says ask a question. So feel free to use the chat for anything you want to say. Tell us how you're doing, where you're from. But if you have a question for Jonny, click that question box, type it in there, send it our way, because later on, Jonny's going to answer questions towards the end of our time together. And that's the best way to make sure we see it. Also, we would love for you to share this event with your friends, invite them to join, come hang out, drink some rum with us. There's a share button up at the top right, so you can share to Facebook, Twitter, get the link, tell your friends to hop on and join, and what have you. So other than that, the agenda, we're going to spend about 30 to 40-ish minutes with Jonny sharing some stuff with us about making cane juice rum, and then we're going to have 15 to 20 minutes or so at the end for Q&A. But first, we should talk about the man of the hour, Jonny Ver Planck. So, Jonny, you've started your own distillery. You've been head distiller at another distillery. You've consulted with distilleries all over the world. Give us a quick window real quick into how you got started distilling and specifically your experience with cane juice rum production. And also at some point, we have to talk about this amazing picture you sent me right here, because I know there's a good backstory to it. So tell us about you and distilling, Jonny.
Well, I've homebrewed and done stuff like that, made crushable wines and ciders and beers and everything pretty much since I was a kid.
Right.
Living in Belize, I was down in Belize. I was going to open a place down there. Back then, 20 plus years ago or whatever, it was all you could get was a local rum, and that's kind of the reason I was there. I'm a rummy, but opening a business, going from manufacturing to across the bar would make more sense for like vodkas and stuff like that. So I called a couple distiller friends of mine, and I was like, I'm gonna put together a little setup, and I started doing some vodka to go directly to the consumer as I was going to open this place up down there. I did that. That was not much of a challenge. And so I was like, well, let me get into some of the botanicals and stuff. So I got really into trying to rival the best absinthe that I could find anywhere in Europe or anywhere on the planet. And then, so I got really into the botanical thing. And then basically a Cat 4 hurricane hit there and kind of changed plans. Life changes things sometimes. And then I just was already in love with the distillation side of things, and obviously went back to my first love, which is rum.
Awesome.
That's how that all happened.
Yeah. So, it seems to me like interest in cane juice rum from distillers in the U.S. has been going way up in the last few years. Like every other month, every few weeks or so, I see another, label approval for a cane juice rum or something like that coming out here in the U.S. What's behind all that surge of interest right now? Why do you think that's happening?
Well, hopefully I had a little something to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2016, I fermented about, for the 2016 harvest, I think about 6,000 gallons of juice, fermented and distilled there. So that was a light year. 2017 harvest, I think we did about 25,000 gallons fermented and distilled. And then the 2018 harvest, I did over 50,000. It was like 50,250 gallons of juice. I am guilty of putting agricole on the bottle.
Okay.
I never had intentions to keep it going. The whole intention was to, I also did it at 90, released it at 90 proof, which is more of a little bit of a stepping stone. I think I did the juice justice. I didn't strip out a bunch of flavor or nothing, but I really wanted to introduce the American palate to this, what is basically a European thing, even though it's, Caribbean. Martinique and Guadeloupe and those places. I just love agricole style rum, and I really wanted to introduce it to a lot of people. And so I'm I'm hoping that that I had something to do with a little bit of the wave that's happening now. So, but it is definitely it's definitely picked up for sure.
Absolutely. So one thing, just, the title of this presentation is Making Cane Juice Rum, the Basics and Beyond. So I do want to start with some of the basics with cane juice rum production. So let's start with just talking about working with molasses versus working with cane juice. I know you've worked with both. What are the biggest differences between the two when you're working with them for rum production?
They are vastly different. So molasses is it's a commodity. It's shelf stable. You can ship it all over the world. Molasses is almost indestructible. It's an easy thing to get anywhere in the world, anywhere on this planet. You can get molasses, and you can get it to people that want it. Cane juice is a whole nother story. It's got, I would say from the time you harvest the cane, you probably have 24 hours before you crush it. I would say at a max time limit. And then from the time of crushing, I would say a max time limit on that would be 6 hours before you get that fermentation rocking, or it's going to go sour, which means the pH is going to drop and bacteria is going to take over, and it's just not going to be good. It's not going to be a good ferment. So that's the biggest difference right there. Molasses can be done anywhere. Juice, you gotta either have your own jet, or live near sugarcane production.
Do you know anyone transporting sugarcane juice by jet right now?
Nah, but I'm sure it's not out of the question.
Yeah, there's some investors somewhere right now working that out.
Yeah.
So let's talk about fermentation with cane juice. You touched on it a little bit right there. First of all, these are a couple of pictures that you shared with me from ferments that you've done. What can you tell us a little bit about these pictures?
Yeah, I was doing as much juice as possible, so I filled every fermentation tank, and then I started doing totes too. So with only 250 gallons of ferment, you don't have to watch the temperature as much as you would. Once you get into, well, I would say over 500 gallons, you got to have cooling on there, especially with something like juice that's going to ferment so violently. The temperature is going to raise to a point where it's going to kill the yeast, and you're going to have a bunch of sugar water with dead yeast in it. So, but 250 gallon ferments, as long as you're not in like extreme temperature somewhere, like the Death Valley or something summer, you're gonna be pretty much fine indoor with like a 250 gallon ferment on its own without any type of cooling.
Got it. So if you're someone who's kind of used to working with molasses based fermentations, what are the main differences you're going to encounter when working with cane juice?
It's got to come right away. There's a lot of solids in it. There's all kinds of different things. When we get into like, sourcing the juice and things like that, we could probably cover a little more.
Yeah.
But how you receive it and how fast you have to work with it. You can get totes or a tanker of molasses and pump it over and let it sit for 9 months and ferment at will. The juice, you got to be ready to move. When we first started doing this, we were doing round robins where we'd had a couple people on trucks, me and somebody else usually, and then had Dean, who was my assistant at the time. He'd be there, and so we'd be just rolling in. We'd pump it out the juice, and it'd be getting pitched immediately. And we would do that well into 2-3 in the morning, starting at sunrise and go until 2-3 in the morning to get everything rocking. So it's a lot of work. It's and you can't really, if you say you're taking X amount of juice, you gotta do it until you're done. We had a truck break down on the bridge crossing over the Mississippi River.
Oh, wow.
Into Baton Rouge, and it was loaded full of totes, and they were going to try and come tow the rental truck away as a big flatbed steak bed truck. And I was like, nope, you got to tow it to the distillery. So that we were out there at night pulling totes of juice off in the dark because I had to get those things in the tanks and fermented. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
juice.
That's amazing. So I know there are lots of different varieties of sugarcane. We've got a few pictures here. I think that one on the left, that's from Florida, right? That batch you did down there recently?
That's Central Florida. That actually grows in white sand. He's got irrigation, and he's growing cane in white sand. There's no swamp, there's no goop, there's no foul stench. It's it's clean, grown in white sand. It's pretty awesome setup.
And is that Sugar Sand Distillery?
Correct. It is Sugar Sand Distillery.
Awesome. So I know there are lots of different varieties of sugarcane. What should rum producers know about the differences in those varieties, and how much of an effect do they tend to have on the rum made from them?
All right. So, I mean, you're going to set me up for a crucifixion this early in the game.
I'm handing you the rope. It's up to you what you do with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to speak my mind, even though some people are gonna disagree and probably be very upset at me.
Well, that's what we have the chat. We have the chat box and the question box for.
Yeah, I personally believe, and it is my opinion, and I'm always open for somebody to be able to change my opinion. But I am pretty strongly under the impression, and that the variety of cane makes less difference than your fermentation and your distillation and your yeast choice. I could take, you could give me the same cane, and I could take that cane and I could do 4 different fermentations and 4 different distillations, and I will have 4 different rums for you without going through some crazy 96 plates or something and stripping out all the flavor. I'm talking still retain the flavor of the sugarcane and give you 4 different rums. From one heirloom variety or whatever you want to do. But right. You could also bring me 4 types of cane, and I could do the same fermentation, the same distillation on the same setup, and they will all taste pretty much the same. And that's where I don't think that it varies that much. If you do have like an heirloom variety of cane and it grows well in your environment, and more power to you, that's awesome. I don't think that planting heirloom varieties and then having to douse everything with tons more pesticides and all kinds of stuff like that I just don't think that that's makes that much of a difference. So while I do respect people that can use heirloom varieties and stuff, that's awesome. I think that in the end, for the rum side, that there's more stake to be put into how it was harvested, if there was any filtration done, how your fermentation went, how long it was, what temperature it was at, what type of yeast you use, and then what type of still and how you distilled it. I think all those factors weigh heavier than the variety of cane. And that's my personal feeling.
Interesting. Well, I haven't seen too many angry people yet in the comments, so it sounds like you may have gotten your opinion out safely. But if anyone does have questions about that, like I said, feel free to ask, or if you have a different take, feel free to let us know. We can talk about it during the Q&A. One of the things that does get brought up a lot with cane juice rum is terroir. What roles do things like soil, climate play in the production of cane juice rum? Are there certain qualities and characteristics that you can look for in the rum based on where the cane came from?
I think, one second. I think regions tend to steer towards a style. The cane is gonna be relative to the area that it was grown in, and probably have the same characteristics in there. And sometimes you'll get some briny notes, and sometimes you'll get some peppery stuff, whatever it is, right. and it's regional. But I think that people in a certain region, when a style starts to work for something, I think that people kind of jump on board, and I think that the camaraderie amongst the people that are in that environment and in that part of the business kind of brings things together and kind of makes a regional style like that. Like I said, that I don't put that much stake in the variety of cane. I honestly don't. If it's at a great bricks content, if it's healthy, if your yields are good, if it there's a ton of factors. I just once you ferment and distill it, I think that you really can change the flavor a lot more on the other side of things. And I think that the styles and the way people process and the stills that they use and in a certain region all play big parts in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned bricks content, and I'd love for you to talk a little more in depth about that, and just what that means for people who aren't familiar with bricks content and how it affects the final flavor of the rum. I actually noticed I saw a label approval come through from Sugarfield Spirits, which I know you have a connection there. They just had a label approval for a new cane juice rum, and they actually put the Brix content for the cane juice that they used on the label, which I thought was really cool and interesting. So tell us a little about what that means and how it expresses itself in the juice, in the rum.
Well, you mentioned Sugarfield, so that's I kind of helped.
Yeah.
Get things rolling there. Dean, the head distiller there, is actually that he was my right hand man. So
Right.
so he worked with me for a few years. So he's on a good path. He's making good juice. That's cool that they put the coordinates on there as well.
Yeah, they had like the GPS coordinates of the plot of land where the cane was grown. I think all that's really cool. I wish more producers would put that type of stuff on the label.
Yeah, I went out with them one day and we hand harvested some of the cane that was out there. But they got a crusher themselves, and they harvested the cane, and they brought it to the distillery, and they got some people hands on deck, and they crushed the cane there. And I think that's super awesome. The Brix content is the sugar content for someone who's not guessing. Basically 0 is no sugar and 100 is a whole lot of sugar. So if that's a simple way to look at it. Fermentation wise, somewhere around 20 Brix is usually a really good goal to shoot for. You're not going to get that in the beginning of the season in a lot of places. You're gonna get. I've got cane as low as 13 Brix before, and then as high as 21, even 22 a couple times. But I mean, right in there, hopefully 18 to 20 is real prime. So you just if you're farming a bunch of cane and you got these big old stocks and it's coming out at 10, 12 Brix or whatever, your yield's going to be garbage.
Okay.
It's not going to be a good yield. So the higher the Brix, really the better.
Got it. So one thing we're also seeing more of recently is distilleries that aren't located in climates where sugarcane can grow, trying different methods of getting cane juice in over long distances so they can work with it. I've seen some that have tried like freezing it after juicing. I've seen others talk about heating it up and quote unquote stabilizing it to transport it. Do you have any experience with methods like that? And I'm curious how feasible you think it is to source cane juice for rum production if you're not located near growing regions.
Yeah, back when I had the distillery up in Missouri, I was trying to figure out ways to get cane there. The juice wasn't going to happen. I already knew that. There's no way to get it up there. So I was looking at possibilities to basically have it harvested and have trucks bring me cane and press it there. And anyway, long story short, none of it really seemed that feasible and to get good juice going. So then I ended up in Louisiana next to the sugar cane. And that's when I started doing all the juice rum. The freezing stuff, we tried it. I don't know. I only know of a couple people that are trying to freeze cane juice. Mm-hmm. It's an absolute nightmare. You freeze it, it's in whatever drum it's in, and then it's a solid block of ice. So you've got to thaw that out. And how many hours do you think it's going to take you to thaw out a block of ice? You can put in like heat probes and stuff like that. So then you've got juice that's being heated up to 150 degrees, and then you got frozen juice, and it's just a big mess. And I think molecularly, freezing and basically almost scorching. I mean, juice doesn't like that. And it's a weird deal. And any of the frozen juice that's out there isn't fresh because it's probably been sitting in a cold storage for a year or 2 years, maybe even 3 years. So. Mm-hmm. I don't think the freeze method is in there. I think the jet might work better. If somebody's out there and's got a jet and wants to fly some juice over to somewhere, that may work. Fly to the Bahamas or something from Orlando.
Right.
But I don't know.
Go ahead.
I think it's just hard. It's just hard if you're not there. You got to think about the cost to get it there and all the resources that you're wasting and just everything that goes with it. Would it be awesome to do if I'd have been able to pull off a cane juice rum in mid Missouri? Yeah, that would have been super awesome, but really it just wasn't feasible. And so I had to follow the cane.
I like that. Follow the cane. So on that note, if you have a distillery that is located in or near a cane growing region, How do you get started looking for a source? You know, I've talked to different rum distillers across the US about this, and I know it can be kind of an adventure figuring out how to find out where to get it, then figuring out, you know, how to crush it and move it around and everything. But how do you suggest people start with that? What are they going to need?
Go cut some stalks and squeeze it yourself and do a gallon ferment. Do a gallon ferment and see what it does, and kind of figure out, you know the raw material a little bit. A lot of people they're seeking out the mills, and the thing with the mill is you know, if you're going to go try to get a mill to do it, they're going to give you the juice that you're going to get, probably, maybe not every mill, but you know, they're in production and they're going 24 hours a day, and this stuff's coming straight out of the, you know, mucky fields, and it's not cleaned, and it's going in there, and it's, you know, it's a river of juice coming out of that thing. And if you get them to tap into the first pressing, which is where you should get it from, before it's, you know, water's added and all kinds of heat and all kinds of other stuff is added down the line. If you get it at the first pressing, that's where the most soil is at as well. And so it's going to be really dirty. And that in 2016, we did like 6,000, I got like 6,000 gallons of that juice, the first pressing from the mill. Mm-hmm. And it's black, you know.
Wow.
It's black. So that's not the route to go. So a lot of people are trying to really talk the mills into getting them some juice. You know, how much juice do you need? I talked to one person, and they said that it's 23,000 gallons a minute of juice that's rolling down that river in the mill. So 23,000 gallons. Are you going to really go interrupt their day for, you know, your 200 gallons or whatever you're trying to do? That's, you know, somebody else told me they do like over 60,000 gallons a minute coming out of their mill. So
wow,
you know, there's a big operation there that you're trying to interrupt for a really small amount, and it's not really worth their while. And then when you look at it, it's not the juice that you really want anyway. I would suggest figuring out how to crush it yourself, or finding a smaller mill, you know, like a smaller farm or something like that. And I'd suggest go harvest it yourself, crush it yourself, and ferment it yourself. That's what I'd say if you live in a region that grows cane.